Hi, good evening, all, and thank you for tuning in to All India Runners Motivation. It gives me great privilege and pride that about our guest tonight. It's a daytime day in US, but it's a nighttime in India. The guest tonight for us in India is a ultra marathoner who seems to never get satisfied with smaller distances. For example, like 100 miles. He loves anything about 200 miles. In fact, he went ahead during this pandemic. He went ahead and conquered a 500 miler. So anything which is about 200 miles is what he loves. He's been ultra marathoner for the past 7 years. Fairly new, but he has broken a lot of records, including the inaugural, the Triple Crown, which is a set of three races about 208 miles. And he went back again last year to rewrite his own record. During the pandemic, is also done a new unique race, which we will speak about it a little later. But it gives me great pleasure that to introduce our guest for tonight, and he is addressing the guest for the first time, Mr. Mike Mcknight.
Hey,
Hi, welcome.
thank you. Appreciate it.
So the first question is that when are you visiting India?
Say that again.
When are you going to visit India?
Um, it's a good question. I have a buddy that lived in India for a couple of years. I might go back with him one day and visit.
Okay. I mean, it's when it comes to racing, it's a baby when it comes to trail racing and ultra. But we do have one of the most dangerous races, which is called as the La Ultra. It takes place in the very high altitude region of Ladakh, which is in the northern parts of India. And they do have a race which might interest you. Next year, they're going to come out with a race which is around more than the 500 miler which you have ran, but in a higher altitude.
What's the altitude?
The altitude is almost, I mean, yeah, it's in the Himalayas actually. So something similar to your regions, but it's very snowy and the conditions are extremely not as, it's very bad, very cold areas. And you can experience extreme heat and extreme cold.
I like cold. I don't know if I don't like heat, so
Okay, so that is something you might want to try, and you can have a look up, and I'll send you the link later.
yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Okay, a new challenge for you.
Yeah, I got to figure that heat out.
So we got few people coming in and tuning in and saying hello to you and wanting to hear you. So uh, tell us a bit about yourself. You know, as a from your childhood days, something about your childhood and your entry into athletics.
Yeah, so my childhood consisted mainly of working. I grew up on a family dairy farm.
Yeah.
Um, so that was basically my life for, you know, since I can remember till about I was 18 years old. Then when I was 18, I left the family farm and kind of started my own life. But yeah, like anyone that knows anything about like dairy cows, we had to get up at 2 a.m. to milk the cows. As soon as we were done milking the cows at like 5, we had to go move pipe. And then I went to school. Then we came back, and then I helped finish milking the cows, feeding the calves, all that. So I didn't do any kind of like physical activity. Well, I mean, dairy farming's physical activity. It's strenuous and it's hard work, but like running and sports, I didn't really get into until I was in high school, and I decided to give like football a shot. I gave track a shot, but at that point, like I was a junior in high school, so um, I wasn't naturally talented with sports, so I didn't do a lot of. I didn't really play football. I was on the bench most of the time. I came in close to dead last at all the track events, so it wasn't a great experience. um, Ended up taking a couple years off from sports. Then when I was about 21, I started running again, started to appreciate it more. And it was about when I was about 23 years old is when I started ultra marathoning for the first time.
Okay, wonderful. I know that in one of your interviews, I heard that during the football, you're supposed to run some 40 yards, and somebody who was like two times heavier than you beat you by within in few yards.
Yeah, that was kind of embarrassing.
I mean, you might, but still, you have a great 1 mile time of around 4.36, which is fantastic. That is not slow; it is fast.
Yeah, so that was like 3 years after high school. So
Okay.
some reason between age 18 and 22, I was able to pick up a little bit of speed.
Okay, wonderful. We have got a lot of people coming and saying hello. We have got a running legend from India. His name is Satish Gujaran. He is saying hello, and he has ran the Comrades Marathon, which is in South Africa, 10 times, and he is the person who has inspired us all in ultra marathon running in India. So it's nice of you to of him to tune in, and a lot of other people who have tuned in, very senior runners, and all saying hello to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Okay. So, uh, I mean, your progression is like, you just went and started. There is nothing like in between. When I saw your running biography, in the sense like, you don't have a 10K race run by Mike where he set a, where, or your 21K run or a half marathon or a 42, maybe 42 Ks, maybe you would have ran, maybe one race, but it has always been above 50 kilometers, 50 miles and above. So it's like, I cannot say that you ran the classic races of the marathon and the half marathon. You just jumped into ultra marathon. Uh, what is the reason you started the ultra marathon?
So I have done one half marathon and I've done one 10K and then probably two or three 5Ks. Um, so it's kind of like a long, weird story, but like I ran a half marathon when I was 21. And it was like an hour and 29 minutes. And I didn't train terribly hard for it. So I was pretty stoked. And so that's what made me start running consistently. I wanted to try and get good at it. Um, and then less than half a year after that half marathon, hi, I just saw that flash. But after
Yeah,
that, half a year after my first half marathon, I broke my back in a skiing accident.
yeah.
I had surgery. I had a bunch of hardware put in my back. I At this time I started a new job. I just started college. And so I was told I'd be in bed for about a year by my doctor. I lost my job because of that. And then I incompleted my college classes because I thought I'd be in bed for a year. So I just deferred my classes for a full year. And then, long story short, I had a quick recovery. I started running 3 weeks after my surgery. I did so. That was my first and only 10K 6 weeks after my surgery. And
Okay.
then about 2.5, 3 months after my surgery, because I didn't have a job and I didn't have school, I had nothing else to do. So I just started running 10 to 15 miles a day because I had nothing better to do. Um, and then shortly after, I heard about ultra marathons, and it just sounded like a cool concept. So I signed up for my first race just over a year after my surgery and ran it and fell in love with it. So I found no need to go back to marathons or any of those races that I missed just because
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
ultras.
I mean, usually the progression of a lot of runners is like, okay, 5K, 10K,
Yeah.
half marathon, marathon, and then you go into ultra marathon, which starts the 50-kilometer run. But you just seem to be jumping into the miles part of it. So you had a 28 miler, then you had a 50 miler, and then you went ahead.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like if you put. I'm sure if I went back to do like that 40-yard dash with that guy that was bigger than me, I'm sure he could still beat me. Um, I,
Okay.
I'm not like a fast runner. I can just. I figured out that I'm decent at like figuring out how to run off of a little sleep and just go forward for a long time. But speed, I don't really have speed.
Okay. What you did not tell about your recovery run was that you did not tell your doctor that you're running, and you
No,
never met the same doctor again.
Nope, nope. My sister is a nurse at that hospital, and I asked
Okay.
her a couple weeks ago if he still works there, and she said yes. So I'm thinking of going back up there and reintroducing myself.
And maybe get a free checkup.
A free checkup, yeah, yeah, so, yeah,
He can, you can be his success story, right, of a surgery well done, and
yeah.
and a faster recovery, which he did not know about.
No, he has no idea.
So at that time when you started running, after the accident, I know that you had a broken back because of the ski incident,
Hmm.
and you had screws fitted onto your spine and a part of your hip taken also to put in your into your recovery. Uh, what were you telling yourself, when you started running? Any positive messages you were telling yourself inside your head when you started running?
Yeah, I mean, like the biggest thing that I was telling myself and focusing on and still think about is like, the moment I wrecked skiing and I didn't have like a proper diagnosis, so like the ambulance ride to the hospital, I wasn't sure what I did to my back, and so I wondered like if paralysis was a possibility. Like I knew I wasn't paralyzed at the moment because I could still move, but I didn't know if there was a possibility that it could still come. And so I was just like, placed in a moment where I wasn't sure if I'd even be able to walk again. And then after I had my surgery, being told that I had to take a year off. And then obviously I didn't have to do that. So just the fact that I was able to move, the fact that I was able to run again so early, I just kept reminding myself and still remind myself that, any moment that could be taken away. And so just you just got to keep like, yeah, running's hard. Like it makes you sore. It gives you issues sometimes, but I'd rather have that kind of pain than not be able to feel anything in my legs because I'm paralyzed. So, just
Okay.
reminding myself to be grateful that I can move.
Okay. Who was your co-conspirator for that first run?
Who is my what?
The co-conspirator who helped you to get out of the hospital, and help you with the run, your first run.
Um, I mean, I just kind of got out and did it.
Okay. Oh, you couldn't tell anyone?
So I moved back home with my parents
Okay.
because I didn't know how much help I would need and stuff. So I was living with my parents, and so I guess to take a back step, my therapy for like the physical therapy, my doctor said was to like I had a walker, and he told me to go
Yeah.
for a walk for about a mile a day.
Yeah.
And so like I was out there walking already by myself, and so when I started running, I didn't tell my parents, I didn't tell anybody, just because
Okay.
I mean my parents paid for my surgery.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't.
I mean, you just said you're going for a walk and you ran 10 kilometers and came back.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's nice. I mean, I was watching the videos of your interviews, and you were showing your house, and you seem to be in a very nice place, which all runners aspire to be. Working in a company which manufactures shoes, and trying out shoes, a year before they come into the market. How many pairs of shoes are you owning? Because the last count which you gave in the interview was 40 pairs. Has it increased or has it decreased?
So I mean, to take a back step, I don't work for Ultra anymore. I don't know if
Okay.
that's referencing. Um,
Okay.
I run for Solomon now. Um,
Okay.
so different company. And I had probably close, because I'm a new athlete for Solomon. So I had probably about 12, 15 pairs of shoes. And I'm sure we might talk about this later, but I had those shoes stolen.
Okay.
So I probably have about 7 pairs of shoes now.
Okay. I mean, it's like a thief entering the house of a runner and saying what to steal. Okay, take away his Garmin watch, or, add his shoes off, and he'll be off for a month.
Well, unfortunately, they were taken out of my truck during my Colorado trail attempt.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
had my shoes stolen like mid 500-mile run.
Okay. Is somebody tracking your Strava? Maybe or your it's like, okay, fine, he's out on a run. Let's steal it off.
No, they were taken out of my truck at the hotel. So I
Oh God.
like at the start of the Colorado Trail that I had my shoes stolen.
Okay. I mean, you're a big fan of ultra running shoes. If you can just tell the audience the difference between, normal shoes which you use for running a marathon, for instance, and ultra marathon, how it helped you, and how it will help other runners also.
Are you saying ultra or
Yeah,
ultra?
the ultra.
Yeah, so I'm actually with Solomon now.
Okay. No, I'm saying not a company. I'm saying
Oh,
ultra running shoes, like
gotcha.
ULTRA. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, like a good ultra marathoning shoe is one that's going to last. Um, you know, like I said, like so the market value, the market mileage for most shoe companies is like 300 miles. Um, the shoe like and so if that was the case, then most of my races that I'd be doing, the shoes could be wearing down in the middle of a race.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, like the shoes that I really look for are ones that can last upward of 600 miles, 700 miles. They're made of a lot more durable material. There's like a break-in period. So like, after 100 miles, they finally start to feel a little bit more plush, and then they start lasting longer. So the durability of an ultra marathon shoe should be pretty high up there and can last you more than just half a race. um,
Okay.
and then also the biggest thing I look for too is just like a good tread, just because a lot of these races have some loose gravel, loose dirt, and if you're running in shoes that have like nothing on the bottom, you can slip and fall. So durability and tread are what I look for in an ultra marathon shoe.
Okay. So which is the shoes you are, what shoes are you currently using? Which is, yeah, what's your favorite one?
Yeah, so I wish I had this shoe before I just did my recent 500 mile. So I got this shoe about a week ago, and it's my new favorite shoe, but it's called the Solomon Speed Cross. And it's just, I don't know, you just every once in a while you find this shoe that just like fits your foot so perfectly, and it like almost feels like you're not wearing a shoe, it's just hugging you, and like it sounds kind of weird, but you just kind of feel one with the shoe. Like,
Okay.
yeah, so the Solomon Speed Cross is my favorite right now.
Wonderful. Please let the people in Solomon know that there's a good market for them in India and they should come here.
Okay, are they not there?
No, they're not here.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll let
Okay.
them know.
So they should actually come and and market, because India is a booming market when it comes to trail and ultra running.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Uh, so when I look at I constantly refer to your biography as a runner, because that's the reference I got. So your progression from 50-kilometer run to 100 kilometers was within a year. So 2013, you did your first race of 50 kilometers, and 2014, when June 29th, 2013, and June 7th, 2014 was when you did your 100 kilometers. So how did you manage this change, double the distance, and how did you train for this?
Yes, I don't know if you'd noticed that one of those 100Ks is a DNF.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so my first 100K attempt, I DNF'd because of IT band issues. I had some pretty severe knee pain. So that was actually my first and only DNF so far. Um, so I didn't handle that one as well.
Okay.
But what I did to like kind of prepare myself further is like, looked a lot more into hip strengthening exercises, just because a lot of IT band issues typically span from weak or tired hips, and it just stems down into your knee and your whole IT band. So started doing like more strength training around my hips. And then just like the training, I don't know, like a lot of ultra marathoners are like doing upwards of 100-mile weeks. Um, and I've never really, like, I could think of maybe 2 weeks a year that I hit 100 miles in my
Okay.
training. That's not including like 100-mile race, like actually like solid training every day, getting 100 miles. I only do that maybe 2 times a year. I've had a full-time job for the majority of my life, so most of my running has been getting up at 5 a.m., going for an hour and a half run, and then going to work, and then spending the rest of the evening with my family. So I've kind of always had the philosophy that less is more. I usually get about 70 miles a week. That's a good high week for me. And I've just kind of been like consistency is king. So ever since starting and even till now, I've been pretty consistent in my training and not taking a lot of time off. So I think that's the answer to your question. Just I started pretty early with being consistent and not taking time off that often.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So where does the energy store, lies inside, inside Mike?
Where
Wherein you bring in your energy to increase the mileage consistently. So where is the energy store inside your body?
um, my mind is that
Your mind.
yeah, my mind.
Okay. Because you seems to be consistently increasing the mileage, and at that time, I mean, like, you from a 100-mile race you went on to do the 200 milers, which is the Triple Crown in 2017. And can you just tell the audience about this race? Because I remember watching the video, and you had also IT band at that time, also, right? During the last race, you had a severe knee issue.
Yes.
Also, just tell us about those three races and how it went, so that if the audience in India would want to come and do that race in US, they can come in after listening to you.
They should. It's my favorite race series. So there's it's 3 200-mile races in the span of 2 months.
Yeah,
You have one in early August, you have one in early September, and then you have one in early October. So
yeah.
it's the Bigfoot 200, Tahoe 200, and Moab 240. And I mean, like, you can do one of them, you can do two of them, or you can do all three of them. Uh, I went into 2017 with the intent of just doing one of them. I signed up for the Bigfoot 200, and I kind of had, and the Bigfoot 200, I had stomach issues for about the first 100 miles.
Yeah.
And then I was able to resolve that and finish fairly strong. And then it was probably a week after finishing the Bigfoot 200, I was talking to my coach, Jeff Browning, and he was like giving me his thoughts on why I was having stomach issues. And so after that conversation, I wondered how good I could do at like how well I could perform at a 200 if I didn't have stomach issues. So I was like, okay, maybe I should sign up and do the Tahoe 200 next month. And then I thought, if I'm going to do that, then I might as well do all three of them. So I went home that day, signed up for the next two, and then and went out and did it. And it was rough. Like I didn't train for all three of those. Like it just kind of happened as a spur of the moment kind of a thing. So that's why I ended up having IT band issues, and I had a stress fracture in my leg at the end of the last one. So it was just a big increase in mileage that I wasn't planning for that year, and it still worked out. I was able to finish all three of them, and they're spectacular. I love those races.
Okay. So how is the difficulty level of each of, because each race is different.
Mhm.
The terrain is also slightly different in all the three races. Can you just tell the audience about the difficulty levels, or if you consider the three races, which one is the most difficult, and the different types of terrains you endure?
Yeah, so I think one of the hardest questions I get asked is what the most difficult one is, just because they all have their own, they all have their own things that make them really difficult. Um, but if I had to narrow it down, Bigfoot 200 is definitely the most difficult in my opinion. Um, it has the most elevation gain. It's in the Cascade Mountain range. There's like quite a bit of sections. It's just like straight up and then straight down. So it's steep. A lot of the trail, the two times I've done it, there's been like tree fall. So the trail gets hit with bad weather, and there's a lot more like trees to climb over, trees to climb under. So Bigfoot 200 is definitely, oh, and from a crewing standpoint, like, there's people that do this without a crew, but I've always done it with a crew. Bigfoot's the hardest to crew just because it's in such remote areas. You need four-wheel drive vehicles to get to a lot of the spots. And the crew is just mostly like when I did it in 2019, I got to a section before my crew did, just because they had so much driving time to go from the last crew spot to the next crew spot. So Bigfoot 200 is just hard all around. And then Tahoe 200, you're above 9,000 feet for a lot of the race. It's a higher altitude one, a little bit less climbing, but it's still high altitude. And I mean, there's a section of Jeep trail called the Rubicon.
Okay.
I Google that sometime, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
pretty rocky, pretty dusty area. And then
There's a descent down, right? Where from the rocky area.
yeah,
Which is like, if you slip, you fall down. I mean, you're gone.
yeah. And then the Moab 240, like it's an extra 40 miles, but it's also flatter, so it's more of a runner's race. Like Bigfoot and Tahoe, you have hike breaks. Moab, like probably like 190 of the 240 miles are like are pretty runnable. So like you feel like you need to run a lot more of it, and like it's just I don't know. They're all hard in their own ways.
So, what do you like? I mean, climbing or descending?
I like them both just because it mixes it up. Like it provides variety for your muscles. Like the hardest races I've done, I did Desert Solstice a couple of years ago, and that's a 24-hour race around a high school track.
Hmm.
And like it's just the same muscles for 24 hours because it's just absolutely flat. So that was probably like the race where I was the sorest after. But like a race like Bigfoot where like you're running flat, you're running gradual, you're hiking really steep, you're hiking like there's just so much difference in terrain that you're always using different muscles, and it just comes at the perfect time that you can mix it up and not get too sore. So I like all of it. I like a healthy dose of all of it.
Okay. There's one question which was asked by one of our runners: is that how do you manage the stress on your knees when you are running or when
Yeah.
you're doing such difficult mileage?
So as I said earlier, I like started strength training a little bit to
Yeah.
help my IT band, but then ever since the 2017 Triple Crown, I've made it a point to be very like almost to treat strength training as important as running. Not almost, like I do treat it as important. So there's 3 4 days a week right now where I dedicate days to go strength training, and I'm not talking about like pumping as much weight as you can, but just like increasing your range of motion, doing like air squats. I do a lot of air squats. I do wall sits, and then I get some of those like elastic workout bands and wrap around my legs, and I do lateral band walks. So I do a lot of like strength focused exercises for my quads and my hips, just because the more I've researched, the stronger hips you have, the better form you're going to have, and then the less pull on your IT band you're going to have. So strength training, treating strength training is as important as my running has really helped my knees for these long distance races.
And how many days in a week do you train?
So I run 6 days a week, and then I strength train 3 to 4 days a week.
Wonderful. You have made a video on strength training. I'm sure if the audience, it's there in YouTube. A workout you have done actually. I saw a video on strength training.
Did you just ask if there's a video that shows my
Now,
exercises?
I'm telling the audience there is a video done by you on strength training.
Yeah, I offer. You found it?
Yeah. In YouTube, I found it. Yes, there is one video of you doing strength training.
Really?
Yeah. You may have to go and delete it then.
Send it to me. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like really curious. I have no idea what you're talking about.
You may have to control or delete. Go back and delete it, okay? Because if you're offering it to the clients, then you don't want people to see it right on video.
Well, yeah, I'm curious to know what one you're talking about.
Okay, fine. I'll send it across to you.
Okay.
So the 200-mile races were the first multi-day race which you actually took part in because all the 100-milers were single days, or majority of them. How did you manage? The first time you're doing multi-day race. How did you plan? How did you manage your sleep and nutrition for such races?
So yeah, one of my biggest blessings and one of my biggest curses is I have the capability of like doing a lot off of little sleep, and I owe that to my dad for raising me on a dairy farm.
Yeah.
Um, like I've always been a light sleeper. I wake up 5 times a night, basically after every REM cycle. So um, there's an advantage to that kind of style on the 200, just because you can push through off of a little sleep and not waste time sleeping. But then it's a negative because, typically after, like, anybody can push through a first night. Most people can push through a second night. So when you get to that third night where it's like you need to get some sleep, or else you're just so tired, so loopy, so out of it that you just really start to slow down. And so when I get to that third night, like, even though I just went 2 nights without sleeping at all, I would get to my crew, I would lay down and have the intent of sleeping for about an hour and a half. But it would take me like 20 minutes to fall asleep. I would fall asleep, and then I'd wake up 5 minutes later. And it's like, it's really hard for me to like get a good REM cycle in, a good hour in at these events. And that's where it kind of like has a negative effect on my performance. Like if I can figure out how to get sleep in for the third night and beyond, then that would help a ton. But like, so yeah, so the majority of my sleep sessions come from like 2 to 5 minute naps that I take right on the trail. Like when I did the Triple Crown in 2017, I had planned spots where I'd get in my crew's car and try to sleep, and then I found out that it wouldn't work. And so coming back into it in 2019, I basically just ran until I was falling asleep, and then I'd lay down, take a nap. 2 minutes later, get up and keep going. So I did a lot of little cat naps because
Okay.
that's all.
Something you learned, some tip which Courtney Dauwalter would have given you, like she has got a 1 minute power nap. Do you do any of those?
Yeah. I mean, 1 to 4 minutes is like typically what I end up doing.
Okay.
It sounds like she's the same. I had her on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and it
Yeah.
sounds like she's the same as I am, that she has a hard time sleeping at these things. So
Yeah, it's like things going inside your head, right? Oh, you have to get there. If somebody's overtaken you, then you have to catch that person. So the sleep doesn't come easy.
no, or we're just too sore. Like I don't know if any ultra marathoners out there are the same way, but like the night after an ultra, like when I'm home and in bed, like most people expect me to pass out for 12 hours. But like the first night after is one of my hardest nights of sleep just because I'm sore. And so like you're kind of like taking that concept, and it's like you're really sore because you're mid race, you're not done. So it's like it's just hard for me to sleep because my mind's turning and I'm super sore. So it's just hard to get comfortable and fall asleep.
Oh, there is a ultra marathoner high after completing the race, and there is soreness and there's a soreness in the body which prevents you from sleeping after that.
Yeah. And like, I don't know if other runners are this way, but there's sometimes like a sad period too, because you come
Yeah,
off
yeah,
a big high, things are
yeah.
great, you just did this awesome thing, and then you're just doing nothing. So it's hard to not get sad.
Then you cannot actually climb a step. You are in lots of pain. Body doesn't move. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
sometimes the body does well and
yeah.
recovers fast.
I know a lot of the marathoners, especially Mr. Satish Gujaran, who does the comrades. It has got 1 year, it is the ascent, and the second year is all descent.
Uh-huh.
So the descent is the most difficult part of it, because at the end of the descent, you cannot even climb one step because your body is totally sore, especially so you cannot climb a single step. You are in pain. It takes you around 15 minutes to climb like 2 steps. It's
Yeah.
so much of pain. So the Triple Crown race is also unique because you have to complete these 3 races of 200 miles plus in around 2 months time, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage your recovery during these races?
Yes, I
Or,
did.
or, and did you train at all after that, in between?
So I've done it twice, 2017 and 2019, and the difference between those 2 years was pretty big. The first year, I didn't run at all between any of the races. The recovery part was hard. I went into the race, like I went into the second and the third race with issues, like some of my issues.
Yeah.
But 2019, like I started running about 5 days after each race. I was able to run 45 minutes to an hour each day. Like I never tried to do long runs. Basically just getting runs in slow and easy, and short to keep my range of motion and keep some base. So like, yeah, 2019 was a great year. Recovered well, kept running in between the races, strength trained in between the races, and then I went into the races a little fatigued, but I mean, within like 2 hours, like I was back in game mode, and it was almost as if I didn't have a previous race behind me. It was a great year, 2019.
Okay, that's nice. So, what made you go back again? Because you already had the course record for in 2017 set. What made you go back again? And of course, you broke the record by around 43 hours. But what motivated you to push again?
Just wanted to better myself. I knew that I could do it quicker. I didn't know I could do it 43 hours quicker, but it's like, Bigfoot 100, the Bigfoot 200, like I said, I had stomach issues for 100 miles. That really slowed me down. Tahoe 200, I had some of the worst knee pain of my life in the race. And I walked from mile 60 to mile 120, and then I walked from mile 180 to the finish. So I walked half of that race, and I spent like 7 hours at one aid station contemplating dropping. So there's a lot of time wasted at Tahoe. And then Moab, mile 200 to 240 is when I developed my stress fracture. And so I walked the final 40 miles of Moab, and that was a very runnable section. It was mostly downhill. So I just knew between all that there was a lot of time I could take off if I was like healthy and strong. And so I wanted to go back and see what I could do, and pleasantly surprised myself.
Would you be contemplating going again and breaking the same record?
No, I'll wait till somebody goes and breaks it. My plan though is to go back next year to the Moab 240. Like I want to be able to go. I've only done the 200-mile distance, a part of the Triple Crown. I want to be able to like have a 200 as my A race, go into it fresh, and not have to worry about a 200-mile race 30 days later. So I want to go back to the Moab 200 and like see what I can do now without having the other two behind my back.
Okay. Maybe you want to take a look at Courtney's record.
I do, yeah. I want to.
Yeah, I thought so.
Take that.
I thought so much that you wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one record which has eluded you. So I'm sure you wanted to look at that.
It's funny, like the Moab 240 is probably my least favorite of the three. I think Tahoe and Bigfoot are so much more beautiful. And like I said, I like the hiking aspects. But yeah, I want to go after her record.
That's nice. In the 2019 Triple Crown, what did you do differently?
The biggest thing was my diet. I know a lot of people like, I tell everybody's body is different. If you're vegan, great. If you're vegetarian, great. Like do what works for you. For me, the thing that clicks with my body is the low carb, high fat thing.
Yeah.
2017 is when I just started the low carb, high fat, and I wasn't strict with it. In between those three races, I was eating like crap, like fried food, a ton of fried food, a ton of ice cream. I've learned since then how important good clean eating is for recovery. And so 2019, like I stuck to the low carb, high fat. I didn't have a bunch of fried processed food. I had good rich protein. I had some fruits, and I just ate really clean. Ate foods low in inflammatory response. So for me, like it sounds cliche, I know, but I feel like my diet and eating clean was the biggest thing that helped me recover in between those races.
Okay. I mean, that is something which works for Mike.
Works for Mike. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's going to work for anybody else, but it works for Mike.
Okay. I mean, there is one thing which you did differently. You're not telling that you did not look at your watch after, after a certain amount of time or period of time during this 2019.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if that affected my recovery. I don't know if your question was about recovery, but like during the actual...
I asked you, what did you do differently?
Oh,
so
okay.
You said one is diet. I said, then I wanted to add that up that you did not look at your watch.
Yeah, so I did Western States a month and a half before the Triple Crown in 2019. And I learned a lot about myself at Western States. I was very particular with all my races. Like I would have every aid station, I have splits, A splits, B splits, C splits. And so like at Western States, I was off all my splits for the first few aid stations. And that really messed with my head. So I just kind of self-sabotaged. I slowed down and walked and moped and hung out at the aid stations complaining to my wife. And so like I probably could have finished Western States a few hours quicker. I wouldn't have gotten my goal, but I would have finished a few hours quicker had I not moped. And so at Bigfoot, I went into Bigfoot and I was like, I'm not making splits. I'm not looking at my watch. Um, I told my crew very intently, like, do not tell me what kind of pace I'm on until towards the end. And so it was mile 175. My goal for Bigfoot was 60 hours. But again, I didn't make splits, so I had no idea how close I was to that goal. At mile 175, my buddy Ben Light was pacing me. And I was like, okay, I'm almost to the finish, Ben. I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really positive. You can tell me, am I on goal for 60 hours? And he's like, yeah, you're on goal for 60 hours, but you could also almost go faster than 50 hours. And that was like, took me completely by surprise. And
Okay.
so for each of the races after that, I didn't look at my watch. I didn't make splits. I didn't have any expectations. I just went out and ran and had fun.
I mean, a runner not wearing not looking at the watch is it's the most difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I ended up like, I had the watch on, but I would turn it upside down just so
Okay.
I'd still look down, but I couldn't see it. So that made it a little easier.
Hey, you're not tempted to look like this.
No, that's too much work.
Okay. So if you want to give, I know that you told me that you may not go again till somebody breaks a record, but if Mike wants to give tips to anyone, any aspiring runner on attempting the triple crown, what would be your most 5 tips if you want to give to anyone?
5 tips.
Yeah.
The biggest tip I have is to like figure out sleep. If I was a good sleeper, I would try to get 45 minutes to an hour every night. Not every night, sorry. Second night and onward. First night I'd push through. So work on your sleep. For example, going into it, I did a couple runs where I'd go for a long run, meet my wife at a camp spot. We'd camp out, and then I'd wake up a couple hours later and go for a run the next day. So just getting your body used to running a lot, sleeping a little, then running a lot helped me. Time on feet training over mileage training. So just like saying, okay, I'm going to go for a 4-hour run today. It could be 10 miles, but as long as it's like hiking and a lot of hiking, a lot of elevation gain, like mileage isn't terribly important in my opinion, just being on your feet for a long time. Figuring out how to eat, just because it's a long time. That like some of these aid stations are 25 miles apart, and like in the middle of a race when you're tired and factoring in elevation gain, like you can be out for 7 to 8 hours at a time before you have aid. So just getting used to like carrying a bunch in your pack, but also having your nutrition dialed in so you know what to eat while you're out there. So like you don't want to have a stomach issue in between those aid stations, because it's hard to figure it out if you don't have aid to help. So just figuring out your nutrition. Yeah, those are my 3 tips. I don't know if I have 5 tips.
Yes. For balance of the trips, for if you want more tips, please, Mike is there. He's got his own coaching program, so you can contact him through his website or LinkedIn. Just for the people to know about it, right? The balance 2 tips will be given then.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, I just thought of is strength training. I'd say like the biggest reason people drop it, like people who enter a 200-mile race, like they're pretty mentally there to even want to do that. And being mentally strong is probably the most important thing to help you finish. But that being said, like the biggest reason I see people drop usually is mechanical issues, like something just stops working. So really like focus on strength training, because if you can have strong hips, if you can have hips that will keep you upright for 200 miles, then that's going to help out a lot. So really focus on range of motion and strength training if you're going to try a 200.
Wonderful. That's nice. So strength training is also equally important. Something which runners don't love, and people who are especially hobby runners, not professional runners, they just love to lace up and just go for a run. And you ask them to do stretching or strength training. These are the two things which they don't like to do at all.
Right.
Yeah.
It helps.
It helps. To be a big fan of power hiking. Can you just tell the audience, this concept of power hiking and how do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difference between hiking for sure. It's a quick hike. I'm blessed to live in an area that has some pretty steep incline on my backyard right now. I have my window and I'm like looking at the mountains, and there's a trail just right here out my back door that gains 2,000 feet in less than 2 miles.
Wow.
And so I make it a point to like go do trails like that and just focus on power hiking because it is a different muscle that you need to build. And the benefit of it, like the best example I can give was the Bigfoot 200 last year. We started out, I wasn't in first until like mile 150. And the guy that was in first till then, like I noticed at least the times I saw him, he ran almost all the uphills. And I power hiked them. And yeah, he got a lead on me. Like the biggest lead he had on me was maybe 5 miles throughout the whole race.
Okay.
He was running the ups. I was power hiking the ups. And the reason that power hiking is beneficial, especially for a long, long race, is you don't tire your muscles out as much. You can cover quite a bit of ground in just a little bit less of time, a little bit more time if you're power hiking. It's just later on at mile 150, like when his legs were completely trashed, mine still felt pretty decent, and I was able to just go onward when he was having some leg issues. So the benefit of power hiking is it just prolongs that kind of exhaustion that just sends you into like a death march.
Okay. So, I mean, a little more time, but almost the same result, right?
Yeah.
Running versus power hiking.
Especially for like, I run more in like shorter races. I rarely power hike. Like I never power hike in a 50K unless it's something like Speed Goat. But like most of my like longer races where you need to have leg power on day 3, like I power hike all the time.
Okay, that's nice. So lockdown and the pandemic, it's a kind of blessings for a lot of runners. You see a lot of new world records coming up. You can see that, especially in the middle distance, especially 5,000 meters and 10,000 meters. Quite recently, new world records have come up. You achieved 2 milestones during this, pandemic, right? So you got this 500 miles Colorado Trail, and also another one which we will not speak much, but it is I have to mention it: 100 miles 0-calorie run. What more can we do? Can we expect from Mike in 2020?
2020?
Yes.
Oh man, there's not a lot of time left in 2020.
And winter is coming up.
Yeah, I'm on the wait list for Desert Solstice again.
Okay.
But I mean, if I don't get into that, like 2020 is pretty much done for me.
Okay.
But 2021, I have a lot of plans, but 2020, I'm pretty content right now.
Okay. So 500 miles, the Colorado Trail. I saw your post on on you packing up, and I saw a lot of food. Were you able to consume all the food?
Where did I get all the food?
No, very able to consume all the food you packed in.
No, not even close. But my crew helped out a lot. My crew ate a lot of my food.
Okay. But they loved it.
Yeah, they did.
Okay. So, how many? Do you have this permanent crew, or does the crew change for all the races?
So I had a lot more in this crew than I'm used to having. A lot of them have never crewed me before. Like, I had 2 people that I coach who reached out and crewed me. The 2 consistent people though, who typically crew me, my wife and Ben Light. basically any big thing I do, they're there. And Ben was there for the whole thing. He was my crew chief. My wife, she babysits for the first part of the week, so she didn't come out till about Thursday. I started on a Monday, but her and my son came out. So Ben and my wife are like my most consistent crew, and everyone else was kind enough to reach out and come out here and there and help me get to the finish.
So that is the fastest known time for this trail.
For that variation of it. So
Okay.
there's 4 different variations. And
Okay.
the variation that I picked, that's the fastest known time for that variation.
Okay. Was it the same variation which Courtney also had tried, or was it a different one?
It was slightly different. So there's a west to east variation, which we both did, but in
Okay.
the middle of the Colorado Trail. So like the Colorado Trail is like one long line, but in the middle of the Colorado Trail, there's like a little circle.
Yeah.
And you can choose to go west or east, and then the trail meets up later. So Courtney, she picked the west variation in the middle, and then I picked the east variation in the middle. So we both went from Durango to Denver, but in the middle, we both chose that different route to meet up later.
Okay. So that was an amazing experience. I think you completed the trail in what, in 7 days?
Yeah, just a little over 7 days. 7 days and 13 hours.
Average of around what, 61 miles per day, approximately.
No, unless I did the math wrong, it was about 67.
67. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So when it comes to diet, you spoke about the keto diet, and you also have done the 200-mile races, the 2019 with this diet.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage your food intake during that? How often did you eat during? Because in keto diet you generally don't eat so much. How often did you eat during this 200-mile race?
I mean, I probably eat as often. I just don't eat as much as often. So like before I did keto, I was getting 400 calories even sometimes per hour. Now that I'm doing keto, it probably averages out to about 100 calories an hour.
Okay.
So I eat as consistently, just not as much.
Okay. I mean, and recently you had the 100 miles 0 calorie run. I mean, if someone else wants to try it, something similar to what you have done, how much time will it take for them to reach to that level of 0 calorie 100 miles?
I love talking about that experience. In terms of like recommending if people should do it or not,
Yeah.
I'm not
I,
gonna.
I asked the question in a different way. I said, how much time should they practice before doing it, right?
I know. Like it's everybody's body is different. Um, so when I started my 0 calorie 100, I had been doing keto for 3 years. So if I tried it a year prior, I don't know how I would have done. Like there's no, I was the first person to do it that I know of. So there's no real science behind it. Like theoretically a fat adapted athlete who like really has his heart rate dialed in. So that was like the biggest thing. I paid attention to my heart rate for the whole 100 miles. I never touched my anaerobic zone. I stayed in a low zone 2, a mid to high zone 2 the entire time. So I was
Okay.
never going that fast. So I feel like anybody that's fat adapted that pays attention to their heart rate and can really pay attention to if something's going wrong in their body and can pull the plug. Like I feel like anybody could do it theoretically. But in terms of preparation for it, like that's a hard question to answer. Just if you're a fat adapted athlete, then I think that's the prep you need.
Okay.
And just be safe and pay attention to your body.
Okay. I mean, did you have any doctor in the panel, or was it all your own experience? Did you consult anybody on this?
So I had Jeff Browning. He's been a fat adapted athlete for a few years, quite a while. And like anybody interested in fat adaptation should just listen to any podcast he's in. He knows what he's talking about. So I had his help. I had Zach Bitter's help, who's also fat adapted. And then Zach Bitter connected me with a professor in Auckland, New Zealand, who knows a lot about it. And basically, this professor is the one who told me what I should keep my heart rate at. He's the one that gave me the data on that kind of stuff. So I had their help mainly. Me and Jeff are talking about doing it again, though, in a few months and having, 𝐸. Have you heard of 𝐸?
Yeah.
They have a mobile testing lab. So we're talking about me doing it again, but actually doing blood work, doing heart rate monitor work, blood pressure work, all kinds of work, and actually have some like data from it. So that's on the horizon sometime. Yeah,
that's nice. So you did a maximum of 500 miles, fully supported with crew. So theoretically, let me ask you one question: if something similar, which is supported by the best health for you and the best weather, how many miles do you think Mike can run continuously?
continuously.
Yeah, and for how many days?
I mean, I haven't really told anybody this, so keep it somewhat hush hush. But like I'm looking at in the next year or two going after the Appalachian Trail record.
Okay.
And that's basically 2,200 miles.
Yeah.
Current record's 41 days, so I don't know if I can last that long, but I want to try it. I just feel that, like, definitely at that point, I got to figure my sleep out. Like Carl Meltzer, who has had the record before, he told me he slept 7 hours a night, and he still set the record. 500 miles is just kind of that gray area where like you can push on little sleep and get to the finish pretty good. But like 2,200 miles, I got to figure my sleep out. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can last that long, but I'm going to try.
Okay. So you're trying for that, so that's nice. All the best for that.
Thank you.
And hopefully with this new diet, what you're in, and that might help you a little more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, running ultra marathons, and when you look at 200 milers plus and 500 milers, there's a lot of time when you are like alone. How do you tackle loneliness during such runs?
I've figured out how to just shut my brain off. Like it's pretty cool how quickly, like I said, you're between aid stations for 25 miles. And it can take 6 hours to 8 hours. It's pretty amazing how quickly those 8 hours can go by if you can just shut your brain off. So I do pretty good at shutting my brain off. And then at night too, I typically don't listen to music, but at night when I'm alone, when I'm a little bit more tired, I have like a playlist. And I just turn my phone up. I don't have headphones. I just turn my phone up real loud and just blast this music. So shutting my brain off and listening to music are probably two of the things that I focus on.
Wonderful. So, any favorite singers you have in your playlist, or any favorite songs?
So it's funny. Like everybody asks me, like how.
I hope it is not "Eye of the Tiger." So
no.
It's the most played song. So.
No, a lot of people think I'm older than I am because of my style of music.
Okay.
Like I said, I grew up on a dairy farm with my family. I have brothers who are about 15 years older than me. And of course, they were the ones that chose what we listened to. So I grew up on AC/DC, Metallica, those like 80s hair band kids. Yeah. So that's typically what my playlist is for these races, 80s rock.
I listen to it, so all are good songs.
Oh yeah, so good. AC/DC is the best.
AC/DC is the best, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So during such lonely times, you also get hallucinations. There is one funny hallucination which you're talking about, especially in the about some monkeys sitting on a motorcycle. Can you just share that with the audience?
Yeah, so like most of my hallucinations, like I know they're not real, but like I can't unsee what I'm seeing, and I can't figure out what I'm actually seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Colorado Trail, I was hiking up the trail. I had a pacer, and I looked to my side, and I saw two monkeys who were on a four-wheeler, not a motorcycle. they're,
Okay.
they're just on a four-wheeler, just watching us. And like, I knew they weren't real, but at the same time, like, I asked my pacer, I'm like, there's not two monkeys on a four-wheeler over there, right?
It sounds like a Jumanji movie, right? The
Yeah,
first Jumanji edition.
yeah,
Yes.
totally, yeah. Um,
So
I was gonna say, like, that's mostly what my hallucinations are, just silly things like that I know aren't real. At the
okay.
Tahoe 200 last year, though, like, I had a hallucination where I was lost touch with reality, and
Okay.
that was pretty scary. I got all turned around, couldn't figure out where I was, couldn't figure out if I was moving forward or backward. But after like a 2-minute nap, I snapped out of it and I was fine. But yeah,
Wonderful. I mean, I heard about one hallucination of another runner where he was like a mile away from the finishing line, and he refused to believe that the finish. He thought that the organizers had increased the extended the line, and he refused to move ahead. So till they convinced him a lot, and he completed the race like 3 seconds or 4 seconds before the cutoff time. He
really,
refused to leave, yeah. So he had done around 200 miles, maybe more than that, 250 odd miles. That is in the La Ultra, and he refused to believe that the finishing line is 1 kilometer, 1.5 1 mile away.
that's
So
amazing.
yeah. So we have reached 1 hour, Mike. And I just wanted to. I will just loop it up with one final question. Is that what advice would you give to anyone who wants to become a Mike?
No, don't become a Mike. Be your own person. um,
Or become
but
an athlete like you?
so yeah, anybody that like wants to like do long distance races, I think I said it earlier, but just consistency, it's the biggest thing. That's like you said, I coach people, and that's one of the biggest things I try to teach them. Is like I get that life's busy. I do. I have two kids. I have a wife. Until this year, because of COVID, I've had a 9 to 5 job, and I'm still trying to find a 9 to 5 job. That's just kind of how I roll. I like having a job. So I get that life's busy. And if like there's a day when you just can't get out and do a long run like you're used to, like just get out there and try and make time for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Um, just make time to do something. And I guess if 30 minutes or 40 minutes is kind of your max right now, then make time for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Just try and make like a little bit of time every day, even when life gets busy. And the more consistent you are, the more of a base you're going to build. And just the better you're going to perform overall because your body's used to it and it becomes a habit. It's not a chore. It's just kind of a part of who you are. So be consistent is my biggest advice.
Being consistent. So a lot of people wishing you the very best for your event. We got you. Yeah, Binesa is another ultra marathoner. He's an expert in 12-hour, 24-hour runs, and more than that. So they're all wishing you the best, actually. So thank you very much for coming in, Mike. I request you to be in the studio while I just say bye to the audience,
Okay.
and I'll just chat to you in few seconds.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. And thanks again for coming in.
Yeah. Thanks for having me and thanks for joining everybody.
Yeah. So thank you very much for tuning in. It's been a fantastic session, and really thankful for Mike for taking up the time to come in and address us. It's a morning time for him, and while it is night time for us. So I hope you had some good insights about ultra running through this session. Be tuned in next or the coming Saturday. We have got a runner who has done whose personal best time is 2 hours 9 minutes for a full marathon, and he has won the Moab marathon 2 times. Mr. John 𝐶𝐢𝐬 from Kenya is going to come and address us. So do come in. Thank you very much for coming in. Bye.